Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us for online orientation. This academic session is for any student interested in life science. My name is Cianna and I'm going into my third year studying molecular genetics, microbiology, and neuroscience. And today I'm being joined by Professor Choo. Professor Choo, would you like to tell the students a little bit about your department and maybe what courses you teach at U of T?
Sure, happy to do so. So I teach in human biology, which is a life science program. It's a second year entry program, so we don't really have courses around first year, but we do have second, third, and fourth year courses. And I'm primarily in neurosciences, health and disease, as well as in the general human biology. My favorite course, the one that I love teaching the most, is actually HMB 300, which is Introduction to Neurobiology, where we try our best to get students interested in neuroscience.
Awesome. What are some cool opportunities that you have in that course? Is it lab-based or just lecture?
Yeah, so I think just in terms of what we try to get students to do, what we like doing there in particular is, although it's a fairly large course, so generally it's around 300 students, we do really want students to network with each other, develop a sense of community. It's all lecture-based. However, we do also have guest speakers coming in, and oftentimes that leads to different types of opportunities where students in our course can work with those individuals who are doing research in a field that hopefully they're really interested in.
Awesome. Professor Drew, I know that you don't teach any first year courses, but do you have any general advice for life science students and things that they should keep in mind coming into university?
I think the best advice that I could give students is to try to be as proactive as you can around your own studies. So the biggest sort of challenge I think for most students, I had the same, so I also did an undergrad here at the University of Toronto many years ago. But it was really hard to try to make sure that I was staying on top of things. When I needed help, I was really prone not to ask for help. And unfortunately, that seems to be really common still. And even though you might feel embarrassed or you might not feel comfortable like seeking help, your profs are actually there for you. Your TAs are there for you, their entire teaching teams, and just really advocating for yourself whenever you need help is probably like the best advice I can give.
Would you recommend going directly to your prof or to your TA or some other resource like your registrar first?
So, I think just thinking back, like you sent the questions a little bit earlier, and I was kind of thinking a lot on that. I'm always surprised because I see students mainly in their third and fourth year. I'm always surprised that in third and fourth year, students often indicate that they've never gone to see their registrar outside of like issues that they have with registration. Registrars can do so many different things for you and help you with advice, with finances, with like connecting you to different resources on campus. And then also your profs. Like your profs often have large classes, but they will set aside office hours for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so making use of those are incredibly important. And your TAs. And I think, again, just being proactive, trying to figure out like how to communicate. The more often you practice doing it, whether it's writing an email, learning how to wait for a response, or just feeling really shy, because I was incredibly shy, and then approaching your prof. And the first time that you get a positive response from your prof, it just makes it easier for the second and third time. But you have to have that first time to begin with.
Absolutely. I know you just spoke about office hours. Would you be able to tell the students a little bit about what office hours are and what you can do there, and any tips you might have for someone who's intimidated going to office hours? I know like I'm like in my third year and I'm still really nervous going to office hours. Sometimes I just go and I just don't ask any questions. I just like sit there and like maybe I'll get comfortable.
I think profs have like different types of office hours. So I know in the past, my colleagues and we tried to make it a little bit less intimidating. So we'd have like snacks and we'd have like tea with your prof or coffee with your prof. And I think it just generally depends on your prof. But generally, if you just want to go and chat, that's perfectly fine. If it's like really busy right before a term test, like you should expect that other people will be there too. If it's early in the semester, you're probably less likely to have other people there with you. And I think it really depends on your comfort level. So if you just want to sit there and listen to other questions and that's okay with the rest of the group, then I don't think that that's wrong either. Just like getting comfortable, kind of knowing how to ask questions is often difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So I think attending office hours in any shape or form is probably good. Like there's nothing wrong with learning how to learn, and that's why you're here.
I think something that I've noticed from my friends when we were all in first year is that we come to office hours and sometimes, exactly what you said, we're not really sure what kind of question to ask or where to even begin asking questions because we're just kind of really confused. Do you have advice for what a student should do at that point?
Yeah, I think if you're going to an office hour, um, and this again is just a generalization, but if you're going to an office hour, having like a specific question, or being able to relate back something that is confusing for you rather than just asking, like, I didn't understand lecture number 2.
Mm-hmm.
That really isn't a useful place to begin. But if you have a concept or an idea or you weren't clear on something, oftentimes that actually helps the prof to understand that, oh, maybe the rest of the class also didn't understand it. So being a little bit more specific really helps in that conversation, often leads to kind of a bigger sort of discussion. And it just helps to frame like why you're there, rather than trying to get like an entire lecture back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I know we talked about the challenges faced by first year students kind of like in general, but do you have any comments about a challenge that life science students might face in particular?
I think the biggest challenge for students is really about perception. And I don't know what your experience is like, Cianna. Did you particularly find that life science students in your program were like uber competitive? Like they would try to not help you at all? Like if you needed like notes or you needed like extra help?
I think I got really lucky because two of my two roommates are also in life science. So I never felt the competitiveness. I do know that there are a lot of life science students who are like, oh, it's so competitive. People are like, they don't want to help you, but I've never felt that way. And maybe it's because I've just had really good friends the whole way. But I think like my advice when that happens is like, those are the kinds of people that you don't want to surround yourself with, like people who are like, oh, this is competitive, or even people who like feel it's very competitive. They might bring that energy towards you, and I think it's something like you said, like you just perceive it. It's not really, I think most people are more kind.
I would have to agree. Like I keep hearing all the time that life sciences in particular is like super, super competitive. Everyone's kind of looking out for themselves. People will try to sabotage like your progress in the program just so they have an advantage. To be honest, I've never seen that. I've heard those rumors too, and I usually ask students like if they've ever felt that in the programs that they're in. And I would say that the experience is much like what you've been kind of sharing, Cianna. That that might happen once in a while, but for the most part, I think most students all realize we're in this together. We're going to try our best to kind of help each other out, and that makes for a much better learning experience. And I think
Mhm.
that's what we all want.
Absolutely. I find like sometimes because Karina and I take a lot of the same classes, I'll ask her for help on material. And one time I asked her, I was like, oh, do you feel like I ask you for help too often? And she's like, no, it actually helps me to help you because then I'm reviewing while I'm teaching you. And she's like, it also reminds me like, oh, hey, like maybe I wasn't clear on this concept. So I don't really see where you lose by helping someone.
Right. 100%.
Awesome. Would you encourage students to get involved at university, whether that be in extracurriculars or something else?
So we just finished a call with one of my former students who's now in neurology at St. Michael's Hospital, and we were just having that chat about how she perceived like how extracurriculars helped her. And I think that most of the time we're so focused on school all the time that we fail to realize how important like extracurriculars can be, whether it's like making new friends, the connections, learning how to do things that are maybe not what we normally do in a classroom, like communicating with people who are outside of our field,
Hmm.
or just being off campus for a little while. I think those are all really important. And here's sort of my take on it. If you don't have time, and I call this building in margins. So if you don't have time to build in like 1 or 2 hours where you can go and do things that you enjoy doing, that you're volunteering, you feel like you're really helping the community, whether that's on campus or off campus, if you don't have the margins to build in 1 or 2 hours in your life, then I think there's something wrong. Like if you're just studying all the time, you are sooner or later going to burn out, and that's not something that anybody wants. It may seem like a waste of time, and I know I've heard that from so many students, but by second, third, fourth year, having that outlet is so important. You're doing service to whatever community that you're part of, you're enjoying yourself, you get time away to think outside of school. It's so incredibly useful. So I very highly encourage that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I know I've been asked before why I'm not more involved with the student union for like my program and more program specific things. And I'm really involved in SMC through like the student union because I'm a student council and like orientation and mentorship. And I just find that like it gives me a break from thinking about my program all the time. Like if I'm also mentoring within my program, then it feels like, oh, I never leave my textbook behind. Like I just carry it with me everywhere. And my textbook's very heavy, so I don't want to do that.
Right, right.
Do you have any tips for success for students?
Yeah, I think I still get asked these questions because we have a course right now in physiology in the summer, and it's a challenge because it's like
Mhm.
6 hours of lectures per week, and it's just one course. And sometimes students have like multiple courses. And I think the biggest challenge for me when I was coming into undergrad here at U of T was really around time management. And being
Mhm.
able to like really manage your time well and efficiently, it is a skill. It's not something that I built up in high school, because in high school, like most of the time, like I had my timetable, I knew like what was expected, I knew when the exams were going to be, and for the most part, everything was kind of regimented for me. But here it was like so much freedom, and I didn't really know how to use my time well, didn't know how to prepare in advance for like a term test, or how to start studying for a test and write an essay at the same time. And
Mhm.
that's something that I hope that every first year student, and I know it's part of the academic programming now, I think SMC also has a lot of academic programming around um, good time management skills. That is always a challenge. And I don't know about you, Cianna, but when midterms roll around and everything seems to be hitting you at the same time, doesn't it get to be like really tough until you learn how to manage your time?
It is tough. I've tried a lot of different things. I have my online calendar. I used to have a physical calendar in my room. I used to have like a to-do list every day. So now I kind of use a combination of like my Google Calendar, which has everything on it, and then my to-do list. And then every day I prioritize what I need to finish for that specific day. And I know it sometimes feels like a lot of work just to go into like managing my time, but I feel like it makes the rest of my day run a lot smoother because I'm like, oh, I know what time I should be working on what things, and also being a little bit restrictive on myself. I'm a perfectionist, so like I could go for hours doing just like one little thing. So I like set a timer and I'll be like, okay, after this, like it's over. Like I'm just submitting it. Like it's good enough. Like
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Professor Ju, for answering all of my questions. And with that, we'd like to wish you all the best of luck with your time here at SMC and at U of T.
Okay, bye everyone.